It was Saturday afternoon when Chipo was sitting at the beach, playing with her 2 kids and her husband. The heat was scorching, with the recording of the highest temperature of that particular day in history since 1944. Warnings had been heard everywhere in TVs and radios about this heat alert. Some people, especially the elderly, had suffered heat strokes. The atmosphere was humid. Staying indoors was a non-starter, especially with little kids. That's why Chipo had decided to take her children out for a breeze at least. The beach was packed. Some were having barbecues, some swimming, some lying down, and most walking around. As Chipo was relaxing and enjoying the breeze from the beach, she went down to her memory land and saw how she ended up in that country. At the beach, she had also met with a couple of her friends, and she just decided to share her story. August 12th, 2001 is a day which Chipo cannot forget. Everyone kept looking at this young lady as she alighted from the plane. Looking back, it now appears like a movie. She kept laughing when she was telling her story and where she came from. Time goes by so fast. To think that it's been more than 9 years, you can't believe it. Her flight, the British Airways, arrived at the Pearson International Airport at 2:30 in the afternoon. The immigration officers started doing their job, and Chipo could not relate her story well. The fear of being sent back to Africa struck her, but she just told herself that, "I will do what I have to do." When her turn came to meet with the immigration officer, who was a blonde young lady who looked younger than she was, Chipo just went straight to the point. "I am seeking refugee status." The immigration officer looked at her from head to toe as if she doubted her. She took moments of looking at her without making comments, and then said, "Okay, come with me." She took her to a small office and told her to stay outside. My heart was pounding. Chipo continued relating her story. She sat on a chair outside the office for more than 30 minutes before she was attended to. Later, the immigration officer who had told her to wait outside called her in and started asking questions. Of course, everyone knew about the bad situation which was in Zimbabwe. Chipo was crying as she was relating her story. The way the immigration officer was asking the questions was leading to answers, so this helped Chipo to answer all the questions without any problems. But with no idea of what to expect, Chipo was panicking. Of course, it appeared as if she was crying because of the situation she was running away from. The truth of the matter was that she was scared of being sent back home. Although not so many people back home knew about her journey to Canada, the few that knew about it might have spread the rumor around. It would be so shameful to go back. She had taken advantage of the public hero's holiday to travel. This she had planned in a way that if she was to be sent back home, she would miss at least a day or 2 of work. Would it be so easy to go back home after losing all the money she had spent buying the air ticket and other travel costs? The whole interview took about 2.5 hours. She was given a list of all the shelters around so that she could get herself accommodation while she was processing her papers and waiting to get herself a decent accommodation. Before she left Zimbabwe, Chipo had made arrangements with some friends who had agreed to assist her when she gets to Canada. Chipo was shocked with the way people kept looking at her. It was until this woman, who also looked African, came and started talking to her. Chipo was heading towards the telephone booth where she was going to call her friends to let them know that she was done with the immigration process so that they could come and pick her. "Hi," said the lady, looking at Chipo. Chipo answered back and continued pulling her luggage towards the phone booth. "Are you coming from Africa?" continued the lady. She didn't realize that she was making Chipo feeling more uncomfortable and uneasy. "Yeah, sure," said Chipo. "You might be wondering why all these people are looking at you. You see, there is a heat wave today. That's why all these people are looking at you like that." Chipo looked at herself and felt a bit shy and embarrassed. Although inside the airport was air-conditioned, you could really tell that it was very hot outside. Chipo took off the jacket she was wearing and put it on top of her suitcase. She felt so ashamed to think that her wearing a jacket was the reason why all these people were looking at her like that. Of course, it was her first time for her to hear about the heat wave, but she quite understood, without an explanation, what that meant, by the way all the other people were dressed and looking. She couldn't say much to the lady, as she felt so uneasy than to just say, "Thank you." Back in Zimbabwe, the few people who knew that she was traveling were just telling her that, "Oh, Canada, you are going to the North Pole. It's so cold, so you better be prepared." Little did she know that there are also seasons just like any other part of the world. All what she carried in her mind was the cold. She had taken the jacket from her sister, which she had brought from South Africa, where she used to go to buy her goods for her business. This is the jacket which she came wearing, which made everyone look at her like that. She just wanted to get out of the sight of people who had been looking at her. She carried her luggage and went to wait for her friends to come and pick her up. On the way to her friend's apartment, Chipo was just looking around and was puzzled by the way everything was looking. Firstly, the cars were left-hand drive, which was the opposite of back in Zimbabwe. On the other hand, all the cars seemed to have lights on, even during the day. "We are really worlds apart," said Chipo to her friend. By the end of the week, Chipo had managed to settle herself in a decent apartment and finished her immigration process. People back home were meant to believe that life overseas is all rosy. "We were told that once you get overseas, you can just start working even the next day," said Chipo. People made it sound very easy and so simple. So this was Chipo's mentality when she came. Of course, during the first week, she was not so fussed about looking for a job, as she was busy processing her immigration papers. Monday of the second week came, and Chipo started job hunting. All the people who had promised to help her getting a job seemed to be nowhere to be found. At first, the excuse was, "Oh, schools are still closed, so all jobs were taken by students, so just be patient, because as soon as they go back to school, it will be easier." You don't tell someone who just come from Africa to be patient, especially when it comes to getting a job. Everything seemed so slow. People over-exaggerate when they describe the life in diaspora to people back home. Wherever she went to look for a job, they were asking for Canadian experience. No one knew the truth. For most people, she was just meeting had just come too, just like her, or they were only a few months in the country. It was just most lying to each other, or discover for yourself situation. Things appeared to be so cheap then back home. With the help of some vouchers which they used to get from some charity organizations, life looked so much affordable. Compared to now, she cannot believe how they were surviving with such a small amount of money they were getting. Chipo met with this young lady who lived at the same apartment building as her. The time when Chipo was looking for accommodation happened to be the time when Judy was also looking for someone to share her apartment with, so they moved in together. Here in Diaspora, as long as you all come from Africa, it doesn't matter which country, you automatically become family. Judy came from Kenya. Judy used to discover lots of information which she used to share with Chipo, and it helped them. Most useful information which Judy usually brought was about discoveries of food banks, clothes banks, or any other places which they could access free things. Of one time, Chipo's apartment had 4 different designs of sofas. It was a mix-and-match apartment. They would pick all the things they saw thrown out of the building. It had become like an addiction or a habit. During the holiday season, they would go to all the places they could get free groceries or gifts. It was in no time when the two discovered the Salvation Army store and the Goodwill. All their closets were full of clothes they never wore. Chipo was struck by culture shock. To imagine how the people, especially women or girls, were dressing, Chipo could not believe it. "It's like they are naked," she said. Of course, it was a hot season, but if you are coming from the part of the world whereby in most situations, women who wear trousers are associated with prostitution, seeing what appears to be normal in some cultures can be a shock. It took time before she adjusted and fit in that society. Despite the diversity, Chipo appreciated how each culture was being respected in Canada. Everyone seemed to be treated with some respect and humanity. They were even respected more than how they were respected in their own countries. This amazed her. In some parts of the world, immigrants are low-rated. The respect they are given is next to none as compared to this part of the world. Back home in Zimbabwe, when people used to come from Mozambique or Malawi, especially the refugees, they were treated very low. Most refugees used to be treated like they were slaves. The picture you would get when someone is said to be a refugee would be of someone who stays in a camp or in a place which is not of good conditions. It is because of where she came from that made her think like that. Colonization also played a big role in her life. Back home, they had so many races: black, colored, Indian, and white. It was unlike here where you can only be either black or white. Everything was so different. She had to discover a lot of things for herself. There was no one way of doing things. Life in diaspora has made Chipo change the way she used to think about herself. She discovered that she could be anyone she wants to be. Sky is the limit. There are no limitations. Chipo had grown up in a family where everyone was encouraged to be independent. At a tender age of 18, she had already acquired her own apartment in the capital city, Harare. She was also lucky enough that she managed to get a job with a company which was paying her so well. She had studied accounts and some administration studies, and she had managed to get a job with one of the biggest foreign investors in the country. Throughout her adulthood, she had always been taught that the world is the survivor of the fittest, and this helped her to mature at an early age. When she graduated from college, she got her first job with a small company, but she was not satisfied and she went on to look for greener pastures, which ended her with the company she was working with the time she left the country. Around 1998, a new Democratic Party was formed in Zimbabwe. This was a result of too much corruption in the country. A lot of people were fighting each other. The mentality was that people were to belong to one political party, and some were saying that it was time the government which was ruling should change. The current government, which by then had ruled for almost 20 years, was saying it was going to rule forever, whereas the new potential government was saying they should go, and they needed fresh minds. Most of the young generation was of course going with the change. The new Democratic Party was at the time led by Morgan Tsvangirai, and the ZANU-PF, which was the ruling party, was led by Robert Mugabe. Like in any other political situation, the two parties started fighting. Some innocent people like Chipo, who belonged to none of the parties, were still found victims of the situation. One day on a Wednesday, Chipo was going home from work when she saw a group of about 15 to 20 people gathered at her house. When they saw her coming, they started singing and throwing stones at her windows. Her apartment was at the ground level, so it was very easy for them to reach the windows. When she asked them why they were doing that, they told her that because she was a sellout. They went on to say that they never saw her attending their meetings, which was the ZANU-PF meetings. To them, this meant that she didn't belong to them, and she was supporting the new party. It was quite surprising to Chipo, as she knew for sure that she was non-political. She didn't support any of them. They went on accusing her of being on the same side with the white people. They gave a reason that the company which she was working for was a white people-owned, and the white people did not support the land reform program. Usually back home, it is easier for your community to know the place where you are working, and this is what happened with Chipo's case. Chipo would usually drive a company car written the name of her company, and as a result, everyone knew where she was working. This resulted in the accusations she was getting. She was then given two choices. The first choice was to quit her job and start coming to meetings, or if she decided to continue working, she was supposed to look for a different job and start coming to meetings. The time frame was 2 weeks. Neither of the choices was favorable to Chipo. 2 weeks passed and Chipo didn't do either of the choices. It was not easy to give up her job just like that. She had worked with this company for more than 7 years, and with the economic situation of the country, it wouldn't be easier to get another one. Even if she managed to get another one, it wouldn't be the same. Most of the people who were threatening her were either jobless, either they had lost their jobs, or they never worked in their life, so they at least had found something to do. 2 weeks passed, and Chipo did not do any of the options. She was not willing to comply with them. When they saw Chipo coming out of her car, one giant muscle-built man who looked like 6'5" and appeared to be the leader of the group started coming to her. He started talking with a harsh voice. From the sound of his voice, he really meant business. This man was known in the community as a war veteran who fought in the struggling war around the 1970s before independency. Most war veterans were known for being boastful that they had liberated the country, and they demanded some respect. For any of the meetings, people like him would be the ones to pass out some flyers and to organize dates and venues of the coming meetings. People were forced to respect him in order to keep peace. "I always thought that you earn respect, but not in this case," continued Chipo. When she saw this man's fierce face, Chipo started shaking. She was limited to choices, but if she had a way of disappearing from that crowd, she would have done so. She approached the crowd. There was no way of avoiding, as the crowd was already standing at her door. "So you are the one who refused to follow instructions," shouted the man at Chipo. All the people who had been quiet also started talking to her, some shouting, screaming, and some started throwing stones at her. When she woke up, she was lying on a hospital bed in Avenues Hospital. This was one of the best hospitals located in the city. She wondered how she got there, as she was still confused. She heard one of the nurses running and calling so loudly that, "She is awake, doctor! She is awake!" She was still confused, and she wondered who the nurse was referring to. She realized that she was in the hospital as she saw the pole of the drip running in her hand. "What am I doing here?" asked Chipo. "You are lucky to be alive. We thought you were not going to make it. Let the doctor come and explain what happened to you," said one of the nurses, who was in the room she was lying. When the doctor came, he sat on a visitor's chair beside her bed. He explained that some good Samaritans had brought her to the hospital some 2 days ago. She had been unconscious for the 2 days, and she was saved by the grace of God. That is when she remembered what had happened, and she explained her story to the doctor. He also told her that the people who bit her up also burnt her apartment, and that everything that she owned was now history, all was now ashes. She started crying out loud, but the doctor calmed her down and told her that they should come out with a plan, rather than to cry for something they could not change. Going back to her apartment was a non-starter. After all, she had nothing left there. Her precious life was in danger. As far as her attackers were concerned, she was already dead, so going back to the same community was not a wise idea. She called her work colleagues and told them her situation. One of her colleagues offered her accommodation whilst she was sorting herself out. She had to think and act fast. This is when she remembered that she had friends who had just moved to Canada a few months back. She then decided to call them and explained her situation. They told her that as long as she had the money to buy her air ticket, it wouldn't be a problem for them to assist her with the information that she needed for traveling. Fortunately, all her important documents were in a safe box at the bank, where she usually kept all her important stuff. She then started doing her traveling arrangements. She booked her ticket with the first available flight, which was leaving at the end of that week, which was also a public holiday. She never went back to her apartment. She quickly sent in her resignation letter to her workplace and collected her pension contribution. Her boss was quite an understanding person who processed her money fast before she left. After all the traveling arrangements were done, she then told her family and a few close friends about her plan. Her flight was passing through South Africa. She got at Tambo International Airport at 3 o'clock and was connecting to Britain at around 7 o'clock in the evening. Whilst she was waiting to connect with her next flight from South Africa, she went to sit on the sits facing the checking points so that she would keep an eye at the screens which showed the flights. Whilst she was sitting there, one gentleman came to her and left his bag and said that he was going to the washroom and that Chipo should watch it for him. This gentleman went for more than 1 hour. When it was Chipo's checking time and she was walking towards her checking point, that's when she saw the gentleman coming for his bag. At the checking point, she was asked where she was going and so many boring questions. She told the immigration officer that she was going to visit her brother in Canada. He went on to ask for the address of the brother that she was visiting. After she gave him the address, he went on asking her that what she would do if her brother wouldn't be waiting for her. She told him that she would take a taxi since she had the address. Some of the questions were like, "Where are you going to get the taxi from?" She got pissed off that she ended up telling him that since he didn't have anything better to ask, he should just let her go. "All what I needed was just my boarding pass," continued Chipo. They arrived at the Heathrow airport at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was raining, and since she had her warm jacket, she didn't feel any cold. Her connecting flight was after 5 hours, which was at about 11 o'clock before noon. She sat at the chairs inside the airport with the fear that if she walked around she might get lost. The only place that she went to was the washroom. The airport looked so beautiful that if not for the fear of getting lost, she really wanted to see around. When she was sitting at the airport, she heard an announcement that, "Don't attend to bags which do not belong to you." That is when she remembered the South African incident, when she took care of the gentleman's bag. She also remembered some stories which she heard before about how some people carry some illegal stuff like drugs, which led some innocent people in trouble. When it was her turn to check in, just when she took her passport out and the immigration officer saw her green passport, she took her out of the queue. Some of the questions she asked were like, how was she going to survive in a foreign country with the little money that she had, and yet she was visiting for 3 months? She told her that, according to our culture, the person you are visiting is supposed to take care of all your expenses, even if you go with no penny, it doesn't matter. She told her that the little money she had was for doing some little shopping when she would be coming back. She wasn't going to take care of any expenses when she would be at the brother's place. It was his responsibility to take care of her. She didn't understand what it is with the immigration laws. Even when you are in transit, they tend to interrogate you as if you are a terrorist or you are visiting their country. She was the last one to board the plane. Since she left England at around afternoon, she was expecting that by the time they might get to Canada, it would be around maybe nighttime. She didn't think about the Eastern time, that when you come over to this part of the world, you will be losing time. The time which was on the ticket for her arrival time confused her. She thought that if she left England at around 11 and they were supposed to be in Canada at about 2 o'clock, that would mean that it should only take 3 hours. When they passed the equator, and they heard an announcement that they should change the time, and that is when she realized that there is a difference of time. Change is difficult. That is how she found herself in Canada, her second home.